Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar on staying on top of threats and mitigating attacks with SIEM. My name is Siddharth, and I work as a product specialist for the IT security solutions at Manage Engine, and I will be your presenter for today's webinar. I'm really happy to have you all here today, and I hope you're all having a great day at work and hope to add some value to your security operations with this webinar. I also want to thank you for taking time off from your busy schedules. So don't worry, I'll try to keep my webinar short and to the point, and also try to answer your questions on the live chat at the end of the webinar. Before we get started, I just want to make sure that you have no difficulties with the audio and you're able to view my presentation without any glitches. So in case you have any difficulties, please let us know right away on the live chat and we'll try and resolve them. So I'm just going to pause for about 10 to 20 seconds before we get started. Right, so I hope you've had no difficulties with my audio and viewing the presentation. So my objective for today's webinar is to shed some light on the current IT security scenario and help you take stock of your security operations center and educate you on SIEM and why it is a must-have tool in your security operations center in order to mitigate security attacks. So, as you all probably know, security has become the most important field in IT, and with new technologies emerging, you've got a whole new bunch of security challenges. And I think you will obviously agree with me on this. Because, and it's no surprise that today businesses are starting to understand the importance of IT security and the need for having cutting edge security products to secure their organization. And recently, of course, we had two massive cyber attacks. We had WannaCry and Petya that were trending across the globe. And I'm sure that this spate of ransomware attacks has prompted you to probably reassess and reevaluate your security systems. So this is probably why you're even here today for the webinar, right? You're trying to maybe reassess your security strategy. And because there is a concern of more such attacks like WannaCry and Petya, that's why you're probably here for the webinar to get more insights on how you can deal with cyber threats. So let us look first at breaking a couple of security myths, right? Because we had actually conducted this survey contest last year during October, during Halloween, and we surveyed several administrators in a bid to break common misconceptions and myths about IT security. So we broke several myths, and the two things that I want to point out in today's webinar is the first is that no business is immune to attack, right? Because most of the time we think that attackers only target large corporations, that attackers only target, say, Fortune 500 companies. But the truth is, hackers really don't look at the size of the company in order to carry out the attack. And in fact, most of the time, smaller and medium sized companies are the ones that get affected by such cyber attacks because often they are the ones who lack the security systems in place. So remember this, that no business is immune to attack, and cyber attacks can happen to anyone anytime. The second point that I wanted to make was that the cost of a data breach goes beyond the financial loss, right? Normally, we think of a data breach and then we think that the loss caused by the security breach is just financial. But the truth is, the financial loss, the compliance penalties are just one side of it. The bigger problem is a loss of trust with the customers. So security is not only important to ensure that you don't pay hefty compliance fines, but also so that your business is secure and trusted by your customers. because at the end of the day, you're probably storing a confidential data of your customers, and having a network breach is instantly going to make them lose their trust in your business. So with that in mind, let us first look at taking stock of your IT security, right? So let me ask you a simple question. What would you do if you were faced today, like right now today, faced with a cyber attack in your organization, right? So think about this for a moment. What would you do if you were faced with a cyber attack in your organization right now? Do you have the right tools to mitigate the attack? And do you have a streamlined incident process to handle the attack? So think about this and evaluate how well your enterprise is equipped to dealing with such cyber attacks, such as ransomware. So the question you need to try to find out is your organization secure? And obviously that's not a very easy question to answer, but it is first important to take stock of the cyber threats that are there in the cyberspace and identify which are applicable to your organization. And then, most importantly, if you're in a position to mitigate them or not. So, this assessment of your security systems is the first step to tackling cyber threats. So have a discussion with your team, with your manager to assess your position. That is how you are poised to deal with a cyber attack, and what would you do if you were and if you encountered a cyber attack. In this way, you will be able to understand what is lacking and what more you need to truly secure your enterprise. And in today's IT security scenario, you need more than just preventive solutions in order to mitigate cyber attacks. That is, we need a solution in addition to the many solutions that we are already using. And that is why I keep saying in different presentations that preventive security solutions alone aren't going to be enough. And you need a special solution on top of this. That is, you cannot just depend on a few security solutions. You can't just have a firewall, IDS, IPS, and an endpoint security solution to secure your enterprise. You need a special solution in addition to all of these security solutions that you're using to be in a better position to mitigate attacks on your network, right? You obviously need your firewall, IDS, IPS, you need your endpoint security solutions, you need your antivirus, and so on. But you need something on top of this, sort of like a master solution to all these other solutions, so that you're in a better position to mitigate cyber attacks in your enterprise. And this is where the idea of SIEM comes into picture. So some people say SIEM, some people say SIM, but it's obviously one and the same. And a SIM solution is what is going to come in to act as the master solution over and above all your other security solutions so that you can truly secure your network from cyber attacks. So let's have a quick look and see how a SIM solution or an SIEM solution can help you to mitigate cyber attacks and secure your network. Now, as administrators, you know how powerful your log data is, right? Because log data generated by the systems in your network contain all the information about a particular event. So let us see what we can do with that data, right? Because everything that happens in your network gets logged. And even if an attacker, say, tries to escape being caught by trying to shut down the logging service, that itself is going to be logged. So such crucial data is there in the logs, and you want to extract meaningful information out of it. But how exactly are we going to stay on top of security threats and mitigate the security attacks like the ones we discussed? So the answer to that is continuous monitoring of your log data. For example, SQL injection attacks. You might have heard of SQL injection, which are obviously a big concern. Did you know that you can detect the attack by analyzing the SQL query? And where would you go? Where do you think you would go if you had to analyze this data? And the answer to that, of course, is your SQL Server logs. So, in a sense, from the log data, you can identify or pick out the attack and immediately know that you are facing a threat, and then you can quickly look to mitigate the attack. So, an SIEM tool essentially taps the power of the log data to do its thing. And the problem is that several events would occur in your network every day. And most of these events, maybe 99.9% of these events, would be routine events that don't really concern you for security. So this makes it very hard to detect an event or detect a threat rather amongst millions of logs. It's sort of like looking for a needle in a haystack. So this is what an SIEM tool sort of tries to solve. That's the problem that a SIM tool tries to solve in your security operations center. And log management is at the heart of SIEM, right? Meaning an SIEM tool essentially taps the power of the log data in order to help you secure your network. So I'm not going to really be too bothered about definitions of SIEM, right? You might see several definitions of log management and SIEM across the industry. But at the end of the day, these set of technologies are essentially trying to address the same problem that and help you solve them in your security operations center. And the problem is, of course, that you have so many events happening in your network that is very difficult to actually track which of these events are of a security concern to you, while the rest of them are obviously just routine events. So a SIM tool, in a sense, sort of helps you answer critical questions that you may be concerned about, right? You might want to know which files and folders in your network, which confidential files and folders in your network were deleted or were modified. So you might also want to know which Active Directory user accounts were locked out. So different things that you might be concerned about, you can find the answers to these using a SIM tool. And that is in a sense the problem that a SIM tool tries to solve. And of course, you might have done maybe you're already evaluating a SIM tool, or maybe you're already using a SIM tool and trying to get more out of it because it has become very popular today. And if I were to just define you, in case you're new to SIEM, and if I were to define you what SIEM is in one sentence, broadly speaking, it involves the real time analysis of the events happening across your network. And it can do two things for you, right? The first thing is the auditing side of it. And I call it the auditing side of it because this side of SIAM deals with providing you with reports. And whenever events happen in your network, they get logged. And your SIAM tool will allow you to run reports so that you can track events that concern you. And this is what you're also going to use in order to meet several compliance mandates. So you might have to be complying with SOX or ISO or HIPAA or FISMA. And of course, GDPR is now really trending because different companies are trying to adopt it before the 25th of May 2018. So different compliance mandates would require certain things to be audited and tracked. And an SIEM tool ensures that you can furnish audit reports for both internal as well as external compliance requirements. But the second thing that SIEM can do is what we're really looking at in today's webinar, which is threat mitigation. And threat mitigation is now becoming the primary reason for deployments, right? Because many years ago, when log management and SIEM was just developing, you had companies looking at log management and SIEM just as a compliance management solution. They just wanted to ensure that they stay compliant and don't pay heavy fines. But today, cyber threats are really advanced, And you need an SIEM tool to be your threat mitigation tool in your security operations center. Because an SIEM tool can help you quickly detect attacks at an early stage and help you mitigate them. So let us see how an SIEM tool actually does its thing. Like, how does a SIEM work? The first step, of course, in SIEM is the collection of log data. Log collection, of course, means getting the logs from your log sources into the SIEM solution. And then, of course, parsing these log messages so that you can analyze them. Now, as I said in the previous slide, logs are what drive a SIEM deployment, and a SIM tool needs the logs to do its thing. So the first step involves collecting the logs from all your different devices and centralizing or aggregating this data. So one important thing to remember here is that you need to go to the particular device and enable the logging service, right? So for example, if I take a Windows server, you're going to have an audit policy that needs to be configured on the Windows server so that it can generate log entries for the events that concern you. And once you've enabled the audit policy, the logs need to be sent to the SIEM tool for centralized analysis of the log data. Now, after the collection of the logs, the second step is event correlation, which means associating different events happening across your network and sort of trying to build a relationship between these events. That is, you want to try and associate or link different events occurring in your network because individual solutions provide limited view of what is going on in your network. So if you take just your firewall or your IDS IPS or your endpoint security solution, each of them are going to be concerned only with events that concern their functionality. So a firewall might be involved in allowing or denying traffic in your network. And beyond that, it doesn't know what happens elsewhere in your network. And due to the nature of the security threats that enterprises face, you need more context than just what a single solution gives, which is the whole idea of why SIEM is a thing. So you need to correlate an event maybe happening on your firewall, on your Windows server, on your endpoint security solution, and that will give the intelligence that you need in your security operations center to assess a particular threat and then effectively take steps to mitigate it. So correlating events is sort of like the building block or the fundamental step to threat mitigation. And the next step, of course, after correlating the events is alerting, right? Because you've detected a certain pattern of an attack, but ultimately you want the tool to alert you for it. And a SIM tool ensures that you are alerted in real time that, hey, this particular security event happened just now in my network. And then, of course, after you get the alert, you can look into what happened and take the necessary reactive steps to handle the security incident. And of course, apart from the correlating and alerting, you also want to archive your log data. And log archival effectively means that your SIEM solution ought to archive the logs collected at a secure server. So this means that we are storing the logs in a safe location for the future in case we need to look at something again. And this is what is used in an event of a forensic analysis. Because sometimes if some attack happened on your network, if some network breach occurred in your enterprise, often you might find out about this only weeks after it happened. And often you might even be notified only by an external third party vendor. So when such a thing happens, you need to be in a position to backtrack the security incident and find out exactly what happened. And if it's not too late, even go ahead and ensure damage control. So this is where your SIM tool can also help you with conducting a forensic analysis in your network. Now, with today's webinar, we'll be focusing more on the correlating of events, being alerted in real time, and conducting a forensic analysis. So, before we get into that, though, I want to just tell you that internal threats matter too. Because when we normally talk about threats, we only think of threats being an external thing. We normally think of our enterprise as a secure entity and people from outside, that is externally, trying to infiltrate our network. But the truth is, a growing number of attacks faced by organizations are coming from insiders, right? Whether it is a rogue insider or a naive user, a lot of attacks these days seem to stem from within the organization. And in fact, I saw this really cool infographic last year by DTech Systems that talked about the cost of insider attacks in the year 2016. And as you probably guessed, it's an increasing number. Like we are having more and more hundreds of thousands of dollars being lost by enterprises due to insider attacks. And internal attacks are continuing to be on the rise in 2017 and are costing businesses large sums of money. So with that in mind, cannot look at you cannot look at security information and event management as just an external threat mitigating tool, but rather you also need to keep check on your internal threats as well. So with that, you can do privileged user monitoring. So you know you have privileged users who have almost unchecked power. So you need to track such users in your network to ensure that everything they do is authorized and is not creating a security loophole in your network. So now we'll be moving on to more on the correlation and alerting. And I'll just stop here for a minute. So in case you guys have any questions, you can ask on the live chat and I'll try to answer them right away. Right, so we're trying to answer your questions right away on the live chat, but don't worry in case they are not answered, we will answer them at the end of today's webinar. So let's have a look at one of the most important features of a SIM tool, which is real-time event correlation. And when we discuss correlation, like I said, it means correlating different events happening across your network and sort of building a relationship between these events. Now, many of these events by themselves might not be a cause of concern for you. For example, just take a fail logon, and that might be a routine event unless you have some sort of further context or rather what event happened after that fail logon in order to truly assess whether that was a potential or security threat to your network. Or you take any other events for that matter. So you might take other events, might well be routine events. So you cannot really make much sense out of a single event occurring in your network. But when these single events happen together within a short time frame, it could mean that your network is under threat and possibly under an attack. Now, given the massive size of the logs that you deal with, you are going to have several seemingly abnormal individual events on a daily basis, which are actually not of a security concern to you. So SIEM correlation is part of an artificial ignorance system that you get in order to learn only about security events that concern you. So obviously you can't waste several precious hours every day looking at each event occurring in your network, which most likely doesn't even concern you. So obviously trying to manually scan through the events without an automated correlation system and trying to figure out things out in your network by yourself is not possible. So here the correlation engine of your SIEM tool helps you to instantly identify anomalous behavior which concerns your network security. And in this way, your SIEM solution can analyze a suspicious chain of events and detect the attack pattern at an early stage so that you can proactively deal with security threats. So the correlation engine is needed in order to quickly respond to incidents and ignore the events which are false positives. So let us look at a simple use case to illustrate this point. So what you can see on the slide below is how typically password attacks occur. So the attacker tries to create a backdoor account in order to carry out the attack. So this is how the attack pattern might look like. A simple attack pattern where you have several logon failures as the hacker tries to guess a password, following which you have a successful logon wherein the hacker has entered into your network, and then maybe he does the next step of something like a privileged user account creation in order to gain complete control over your network. So if you look at an event like privileged user account creations, then of course they are something that an administrator would want to track, but independently by itself might not be a concern for security. But say all these events happen together within a short time frame, that is, you have several logon failures followed by a logon success, followed by a privileged user account creation. This could mean that someone has created a backdoor account and is trying to carry out an attack in your network. So my point is that individually, these events might not seem to be a security concern, but with the intelligence provided by the correlation engine of your SIEM solution, you can instantly detect suspicious activity, which is a fundamental basis of efficient threat mitigation. Let me show you another example to illustrate this, and this also brings in the idea of threat intelligence. And of course, threat intelligence is another important must-have feature that comes into play in order to mitigate attacks. So in case you're evaluating a SIM tool, ensure that it has a threat intelligence capability inbuilt to its product. And what threat intelligence really means is that you might have several IP addresses and domains across the globe that are blacklisted and trying to interact with your network. So if you already know that a certain domain or an IP address is malicious, you should be in a position to instantly detect that the traffic coming in is from one of those malicious sources. So this is what a threat intelligence feed can do for you, because the threat intelligence feed sort of has the entire list of such globally blacklisted IP addresses, and these are known to be malicious. So obviously having that integrated with your SIEM tool goes a long way in identifying potential attacks on your network. So if you have something like what you see in this particular slide, where a malicious IP address tries to interact with your network, it gets the access denied by the firewall, and then because of an insider who's colluded with a hacker, the insider goes and modifies the firewall rule so that the hacker gets the access to your particular critical server, and after which they can do a bunch of things like maybe install malware or escalate privileges to gain complete control of your network. So such an attack pattern can get a little complex, right? Because you're having a known malicious IP address or an IP address which is not known to be malicious for that matter. So you have an IP address that is trying to access your network, maybe access a critical server on your network, and it gets the access denied repeatedly by the firewall. And then because of a rule modification done to the firewall rules, that particular IP address is allowed access, following which that IP address either installs a malware on your critical server or maybe carries out escalates privileges to carry out a much bigger attack to bring down your network. So such attack patterns can be detected with an SIEM tool. You can detect that, say, a particular IP address has been denied the connection by your firewall several times, and for some reason, mysteriously, the access was allowed. So you can track things like several denied connections, or the traffic allowed by your firewall, or rules modified on your firewall. And all this intelligence put together is what is going to help you mitigate attacks on your network. So the correlation engine does that for you. It can detect or capture the entire flow or the pattern of an attack in real time as it happens. And this correlation is can be achieved by building what are known as correlation rules. So a SIM tool should provide you with a bunch of predefined correlation rules, which in essence are security events or use cases that you want to look out for. So when you're evaluating a SIM solution, ensure that it has the correlation feature because this is the fundamental step to attack mitigation. So I think I've probably given you a lot of information in a short period of time. So basically, if I were to just sum it up in a couple of sentences, the idea of correlation is that your SIEM correlation engine can detect that a particular specified set of events happened and then alert you for that. Which brings me to my next slide on real-time alerting. So real-time alerting, which in my view is the main purpose of an SIEM solution, which is the most important feature. That is everything that we are trying to do with an SIEM to secure our network boils down to real-time alerts. Yes, correlation is the fundamental step to threat mitigation, but correlation by itself will not have much use unless you get alerted in real time. Because correlation rules can maybe help you detect certain SIEM use cases in occurring in your network, but the end goal that you're looking for is that you want to be alerted in real time that something suspicious, potentially an attack, is happening in your network right now. And this will allow you to instantly take steps in order to combat the attack. So my point is that correlation by itself won't be of much use unless you are going to be alerted when a security event of interest happens. So the alerts are what is going to help you instantly detect potential security attacks on your network. Think about how far this can go in securing your network, right? Because when you have the uh, tool to instantly correlate events and alert you for a suspicious chain of correlated events. And you can receive the alert the way you want. You can receive an SMS alert or an email alert so that you can quickly take steps to curb the attack. You can also go one step further in your security operations center by setting up a custom script so that when the alert criteria is met, a program will get triggered so that you can proactively mitigate the attack. So alerting in a sense is why SIEM even came into existence and started to become a thing because several individual alerts would be triggered in your network by different servers and network devices and so on, and you need a tool to sort of unify all these alerts being triggered separately and sort of ignore the ones which aren't a security event of interest and only get the alert for the ones that you are looking for. So that is why configuration of the alert criteria is really important. Now you know your organization's IT infrastructure better than anyone else, and so you must customize the alert criteria so that you can get the alerts for the events that concern you. So if you are evaluating a SIM portfolio, you need to look for one that has the real-time alerting feature and gives you a bunch of predefined alerts, which are essentially alerts associated for the reports provided by the tool. And in addition to having a comprehensive set of predefined alerts for common security use cases, you must have the option to customize the alert criteria and create your own alerting rules. So here is why I say that the importance of tweaking the alert criteria is a must depending on your requirements. So what you can do for this is, of course, maybe tweak the threshold configuration and set a threshold for the number of events before the alert gets triggered. Or you can configure the working hours or business hours in your SIM tool so that, for example, if you're tracking a logon that occurred during a non-business hour, you can very well schedule that in your alert profile so that you get the desired alert that you're looking for. And in this way, you can reduce the alert noise in your security operations center and stay alerted only for exactly what you need. So a SIM tool can do that for you. You can tweak the alert criteria so that you can efficiently manage the different alerts being thrown up in your network. And coming to the final bit of my presentation, and I just wanted to remind you that we are still trying to answer the questions that you're asking on the live chat. And in case they're not answered right away, don't worry because we will answer you them at the end of the webinar. So my final bit of the presentation is where I want to talk a bit about forensics and the backtracking of security attacks. And you might rightly be thinking, hey, didn't you just tell me that we can prevent all of this with real-time event correlation and alerting? Well, not quite. It's sort of true, but not quite, because this goes a long way in securing your network, yes, but alerting and correlating and alerting alone cannot ensure that in case something goes wrong, you have the tool to handle that as well. So if something goes wrong, you want to be empowered to investigate security incidents and you want to try and limit or ensure damage control in case you do encounter a security attack. And there is proof why we need this, right? Because if we had everything in IT security figured out, we wouldn't really be hearing about security breaches all the time. But if I go to any tech website, any security website, I'm going to hear about some breach that occurred this week, some latest cyber attack trend, some huge company that was probably faced with a huge financial loss because of a network breach. So this is why you need your SIM tool to provide you with the forensic analysis capability as well. Because if in an ideal world, yes, you will be able to prevent security attacks, but in case something goes wrong, you should still be in a position to find out what happened and ensure damage control. So for this, you have all the logs in your solution. So here the feature of log search enables you to drill down millions of log messages to just a few that concern you for a given scenario. And in this way, you will be able to conduct a forensic investigation thoroughly with your SIM tool. The log search engine is just basically like any other search engine, and it helps you drill down from millions of collected logs in your database to the one or the few logs that you're looking for in a particular solution. So in this way, if you do encounter a security incident or attack, you can search through the collected log data and investigate as to what exactly happened. So what was the root cause of the attack and how did the attacker actually manage to carry out the attack? And you can find out the exact sequence of events that occurred during the attack by going through the log data. Now, in this way, by quickly performing the search and gathering data, you can quickly tell in case you did encounter a security incident, first of all, if it was indeed an attack, or just a case of false positive. And of course, if it was indeed an attack, you can quickly take steps to mitigate it. So, for example, maybe if you come to know of an indicator of compromise in your web server, you can quickly jump to the log search module of your SIEM tool and see if the IP address that was trying to access the web server, whether it was malicious, where else it hit your network, did your firewall allow the access, did your IDS IPS detect a malicious request, and so on. So, as an attack happens, you can quickly sort of go through the incident using log search and find out if it was indeed an attack. And if it was, of course, you can take quick steps to mitigating the attack, such as blocking the IP address. So, to sum up what a SIM tool can do for threat mitigation, not only can it help you detect and mitigate attacks efficiently, but also in case something goes wrong, you are still empowered to conduct a forensic analysis and answer your internal auditors as well as external auditors. So with that in mind, I'm coming to a close of today's webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope this webinar gave you some useful inputs. I also want to just let you know that at Manage Engine, we have a SIM tool as well. We have Log 360, which is actually an integration of three of our products: Event Log Analyzer, AD Audit Plus, and Cloud Security Plus. So this is a comprehensive SIEM tool which combines Event Log Analyzer, which is a log management tool for SIEM, which secures your network. And we have AD Audit Plus, which does in-depth real-time Active Directory auditing and alerting to secure you from internal attacks. Plus, we have Cloud Security Plus, which does auditing for public cloud. So Log 360 brings in all these three solutions under a single umbrella to provide you with a security information and event management tool to improve the efficiency in your security operations center. So if you're evaluating a SIM portfolio in your organization, you can try Log 360 or one of its components as required. And of course, if you have any queries or suggestions with today's webinar, you can ask them right away on the live chat and we'll start answering them. And if you have any further queries with SIEM, you can drop me an email. I'm giving you my email ID, which you can see on the screen. And I'm also giving you the Log 360 tech support email ID if you have any particular queries pertaining to our product, to our SIEM product as well. So you can reach out to us offline as well. We usually don't want to keep our webinar as a sales pitch. We want to keep the webinar restricted to a knowledge sharing resource. So do fill in the feedback form at the end of the webinar and let us know what you liked or didn't like, and if in case you have any suggestions for future webinars. So we'll also be taking your questions right now on the live chat. I hope the webinar was useful and your queries also get cleared on the live chat. So once again, thank you so much for joining us today and have a great day ahead.